this is Jeannie Ortega with BREATHeCast, and we're in studio today with the legendary Lincoln Brewster.
I get a legendary.
Yes,
wow.
you do.
Wow,
You've
nice.
paved the way for contemporary music to kind of be what it is now for so many different artists, and we thank you for that. We're here to talk about this will be his 9th studio album. Wow.
Yeah, I know. We were just talking about that.
Yes.
9 albums. I didn't even know that till today, so
That's
I should know that.
That's how you know he's just been around and really just been doing this thing. 9 studio albums. Oxygen.
Yeah.
And it's coming out in August. Is that correct?
August 19th.
Oh, that's
yeah.
so incredible. So tell us about Oxygen. I mean, what a name. Let's start there.
Yeah,
Oxygen.
Yeah, that's there's a song on the album called Oxygen. Sometimes I know albums are named and don't have a song called, whatever the title is, but yeah, it's a title track. It was, I kind of got some motivation with that song, believe it or not, from my youngest son, Liam, who's 9, and when we started writing that song, nobody seemed real pumped about it except me. And so sometimes it works that way. Sometimes songs are, slow bloomers, I guess, late bloomers. And so about halfway through recording that song, he came in the studio and he said, "Hey, Dad, can I get the lyrics for the song for Oxygen?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do you want the lyrics for?" And he basically said, that he wanted to take him to school because he had been singing the chorus for his friends, but he didn't know the verses.
Oh.
So he said, "This is my favorite song on the album."
That's
so I
incredible.
don't know, it made me think like maybe God's using him to tell me something.
Yeah.
So, and the tagline of the chorus is, "I need you more than oxygen."
Oh, wow.
Just kind of a high level thought about, we could literally take our last breath and we need God more than we need to be alive. So
beautiful.
I thought, yeah, Oxygen. It's got a little zip to it, and
Absolutely.
why not? So.
And I have to ask you, what can't you do? I mean,
man.
you
Long
play
way.
guitar, percussion, drums, the mandolin, is it?
Yeah.
You're a singer, a songwriter, a worship pastor. How do you have time to do anything else?
I'll tell you what I can't do.
Okay.
And my
Can you
son,
show
my
us?
son who's here will attest to this. Cook. I can't
Cook. Oh.
My
Well,
wife,
is your wife a good cook?
She's amazing.
Okay, see, that's what God does, right?
He does.
He totally knows what to do to just put us with the right
My wife
person.
can throw down the serious food.
Really?
Yeah, and she bakes and does. Oh, it's ridiculous.
And you guys have been together for a very long time.
We have.
What a beautiful
yeah,
testimony that is.
April 16th, we celebrated 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Got married when we were 5,
Congratulations.
which was awesome.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, that's beautiful. I'd like to find out a little more about that later, but Made New is the new single.
Yeah.
And I told you earlier, it's like an anthem.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us the story behind that song. And
Sure. So, as a worship leader and worship pastor, I think I'm forever set to hear a song and see it through the lens of people worshiping.
Oh, praise God.
And so that song was actually recorded. It was the original recording. It was done by a couple of guys who live out in my area. One of the guys actually co-produced. Really, he produced the album.
Okay.
And I just heard the chorus of that song and almost fell out of my chair, just was blown away, and had this image in my mind of people in church just worshiping God and singing those lyrics. You hold my head up, you remind me who I am, and I'm alive in you again, I'm made new. Such a good reminder for so many Christians. And but the verses were very different, kind of artistic, and nothing wrong with that. But they just really weren't like a congregational focus. So we took a lot of time to really write verses that would, be more vertically focused and
awesome.
add a bridge to it. And I was just thrilled when it got done. The first time we ever did it in church, it was just awesome. It was so cool to watch that picture in my mind come to life, And so we've gotten great response to it as we've been leading it out on the road, and it's been really good.
And does that ever get old? You've been doing it for so long, and I love that you're still focused on, wanting to lead the people into worship. How do you kind of maintain that genuineness and not fall into routine of worship? Here we are, plug in, and then.
I think there's things that you can do, but I do to keep it fresh, and I have to definitely do those things. And my personal relationship with the Lord's number one with that. And when that isn't going, how I would like it to, then that definitely affects it. But I think, the part about people encountering God through worship doesn't get old to me. Being on the road sometimes gets old.
Yeah.
If we've played the same songs over and over and over, sometimes you go, it'd be nice to do something new, which is why I think God's Word says, sing of the Lord a new song.
Made new.
Made new.
So you made a new, okay, I'm sorry.
So that's good. I like it. I like the joke.
That was cheesy.
But I think there's, that's one of the things that when you think about somebody's life being impacted through worship, it's hard to let that get old. And so I think as long as the focus stays on what it's really about and why you're doing it, then that is the freshest thing you can do. When you start just focusing on the music, and I tell worship pastors, worship leaders, like if you kind of think of your set list when you're and it ends at the edge of the stage that you stand on, you're missing it. Like I try to put my song list together sitting in the seat, looking at the platform, going, what would I need, or what would the single mom coming to church who's working 2 jobs, got 3 kids, is frazzled by the time she gets to church, gets her kids checked in, what's she going to need? It's not about me. And so I think things like that help keep it fresh.
That's great. It's, and that's refreshing to hear that, it's just not routine for you.
No.
And you've been doing it for so long. Praise God. And I'm sure that's why God is blessing it and honoring it. So your life has been incredible. I mean, you got your start very early in the industry and working with, major people in the industry, and you started off secular or mainstream, and you decided to do Christian. And I know you gave your life to the Lord in the midst of everything, and you had that switch. I was telling you earlier as well, we don't hear that often. You hear people start off in the church and then end up mainstream, and then they kind of lose the faith. Why is that decision important? I mean, I'm sure there are artists that are watching, musicians that are watching, people that grew up in church. What can you advise them? They're kind of in the balance. They're not sure, should I go the mainstream route? Should I do the Christian thing? I mean, you obviously decided to do the Christian thing, and it's been very fruitful. What advice do you have?
To make sure that people have context for that story, I didn't make that decision because I was leaping from that to this. It was far from that. So it was risky. It seemed to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it was just following God's calling on my life, and it seemed as crazy to me as it did to everybody else. But I knew, and I think God does that if we will listen and ask. He'll tell us, and He did. It was kind of like I just knew. I knew that I was supposed to bail on everything I'd worked my whole life for. Take a job at a church, and I was the assistant technical guy, and it was a far cry from what I was doing. And church then wasn't like it is now. It was not the cool thing to do. Neither was worship. And so I just tried to be faithful and show up, and I feel like God wanted to develop a servant's heart in me. And I think that's important for anybody who does ministry. And I think I've actually heard people go, well, that's why I don't want to do worship, I want to be an artist. And it's like, look, if you are ministering to the body of Christ, that's a service. That's a servant role.
Absolutely.
And so the advice I would give is be committed to following God's call in your life first and foremost, and figuring out what that is and what your gifts are. Be grounded in a local church with accountability, with people who will call you on your stuff, and we all need that,
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, I've been in some great churches with really good leadership and people who have mentored me and continue to, and it's all that stuff. And I think anyone who goes this road without doing something like that, without having a good home base, a good foundation, people who know you better than you know you, and expect to really, you might get somewhere, but sustaining it. We were talking about,
That's
I've
right.
done 9 albums, and that still blows me away, but it's the sustainability. And anybody can start something, but sustaining it is really the challenge. And it takes that real strong foundation. I think Jesus talked about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally biblical.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Lincoln.
Yeah.
And, I mean, tell us, is there anything that we can expect from you? You have the new record, Oxygen, August 19th, 9th record, Made New. What can we expect from you in the future? Is there a tour? Are there any plans? Is there anything that God is laying on your heart? I mean, we want to know. I know your fans want to know. Yeah, I mean,
we're going to be out there doing some touring, and my biggest priorities on this earth are, my relationship with God and my wife and my kids, and I got 2 boys that I'm still raising.
2 soldiers.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
and
awesome.
I've continually said this, and I'll say it again. I'm not going to miss those years with them, and I could be out on the road a lot more, but I feel like it would be, at least for me, and I'm not. This is nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about anybody else, because I think we all have to answer for what God's call is in our lives. But it would be dishonoring to God if I went out and did 150 tour dates. So we're going to try to tour smart and not do too much. I've got a lot more music in me. Working on an instrumental album later this year.
Ooh, that's great.
It should be fun. Do another Christmas tour.
Oh, that's good.
And so I'll definitely be active. And it's funny, I haven't done a studio album in 4 years, but I've been busy. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think there will be a lot more activity that's visible for people in this next season, and
that's great.
We'll see what happens.
Well, we're so blessed to have you here, BREATHEcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your heart and telling us about how important it is to be with family. I mean, you have your son here today with you, and
Levi.
I think it's so important. Thank you, Lincoln. Thank you for your music, just your heart of worship. You're inspiring just so many other people in the world to just have that same heart. So we thank you. So here we are with Lincoln Brewster. This is BREATHEcast. Oxygen is coming out August 19th. Be sure to get your copy. Made New is the new single, so make sure you're looking that up. And he has a lot to come, and we have a lot to look forward to. So
yeah, if you don't like it, just give it to somebody you don't like.
Take care. This is BREATHEcast. Jeannie Ortega.